And now we have pretty human closing speeds.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, for sure. The braking distances of the hypercars, relatively in a kind of lap by lap basis, is fairly comparable to the GT3s. They're braking from a lot higher speeds down to probably still a bit of a higher speed around those corners, but at least they're doing it in roughly the same places.
And we are back with live coverage. It's, I think, a key point to the success of these cars working the way they work. They are just great for multi-class racing. There's no other way to put it. Also, if you take into consideration what they run in real life against with LMP2s, back then also LMP3s, they made a great match as well. They were not too extreme, and at the same time still definitely the crown jewel cars, if you want to say so.
And I'm sure anybody watching our stream will be fully aware that the Sebring 12 hours going on right now. So you can see it as a kind of real world example of just how kind of compatible the GTP cars, the LMPs and the GT3s are. They make for a fairly safe combination, really. If I've commentators cursed the Sebring 12 hour, then I do apologize.
I mean, Sepang is also a nice track.
It is, yeah. I don't know why those two get stuck in my head. Whenever I go to say Sebring, I'm always saying, don't say Sepang, don't say Sepang, and then it pops out.
Two AMGs approaching Enrico Bräuninger. Bit more pace in those cars than the BMW at the moment.
So to give you a bit of a grid rundown right now, we have Rowan de Hood in first, and then 11 seconds back is Adrian Lenoir. About a second back from that, we've got Ali Zahir. 24 seconds then to Julian Secour, 34 to Chestu Manera, 43 to Kimi Harpler, 18 to Alison Flyer, 21 to Enrico Bräuninger, 12 seconds to Jeremy Miles, 38 to Dima Jadamrov. I will just burble my way through that one. And 58 seconds back from him to Jason Kazar.
I think you did a fine enough job. So yeah, still 13 cars driving out of 19 that entered, 18 that started. For Atlanta, that is definitely
the hypercars.
Yeah, I mean, I can take that from you because it's easier. Dominic Ladler is leading this race currently, and he is 1 lap and a few seconds ahead of Luciano Icaso. Both of them so far keeping it out of the pit lane, but in general having quite good races here, I'd say.
Yeah, well,
safe.
Past the halfway point, which I would have thought if Dominic Ladler was going to pit for tyres, he probably would have done it at halfway. Unless they get unbearable towards the end of the race. I'm not sure he's going to be pitting now.
I wouldn't be sure of it either. But of course, later on, it can always happen with lockups, with anything. It's not like... Yeah, how can you really describe it? It's not like you survive the first half of the race, you will also survive the second half. Because there's so much at play now that wasn't the case before the tires got worse considerably. You do have mechanical damage. In the case of Dominic Ladler, we see the front right having some damage. The front left fender also brushed. That can also affect the tire's life. So there's a lot to play, and as we've said previously, you're only one mistake away from throwing your car into a wall at this track.
Yeah, and the mistake doesn't even have to be hitting the wall with the hypercars. It can just be one big lock, well, fairly decent sized lock up into a corner, and then you've got to deal with flat spots, and it's harsh. It's not an easy thing to have to deal with.
Yeah, the flat spots can be very dangerous, and flat spots breed flat spots. That's how you say it. And what Atlanta is, I think, if you compare it to something like the Nordschleife or Bathurst, which of course are also tracks deemed very, very challenging and hard to drive, in some form is more dangerous in the outcome. Because on some form you have more runoff, and you would think, okay, more runoff is good, isn't it? But if you... I think the prime example is turn 1. If you compare turn 1 to faster corners at the Nordschleife, for example, you don't have it too far to the barrier, so the damage, while having the potential to be quite severe, is more limited compared to Road Atlanta, where you will probably hit a barrier dead on, because you can't brake,
Yeah.
and you still have a lot of runoff.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, you can almost prepare to hit the wall at Nordschleife and take it as a side hit and minimize the amount of damage you're going to do, whereas at Road Atlanta, you've not really got that option. Once your car goes off the track, you are essentially a passenger, and you've got no say in the matter about where the damage occurs.
It's a tricky thing with runoff, because you would think more runoff is good, but actually it's not quite the case. There's actually a rule about how far on straights, as you can for example see here, the barriers are not too far away from the track, and that has the simple reason: if contact were to occur between two cars on this stretch of road, they travel at high speeds, but they are traveling in the same direction, so you usually pit maneuver a car. And the more time you give the car to rotate into the barrier, the more dead on or head on the impact will be in the end. So you move the barrier closer to the road, the car doesn't have as much time to rotate, and will hit it more parallel and absorb more energy into the side, which isn't as dangerous to the human body as hitting it dead on.
Or the car itself.
Or the car itself.
Yeah. We just saw there Kimi Hapler going past Julian Sicko, taking a bit of a trip into the grass. Which, it wasn't for position. Julian Sicko is still ahead of Kimi Hapler, but what it means is that Kimi is now on the same lap as Julian Sicko.
And he still
So he
has
doesn't
40
have to
minutes.
overtake him twice. But Kimi is definitely on a charge right now. He's catching Chestu Monera up a good few seconds a lap. The gap, when I read it before, I think it was 44 seconds. It's already down to 31. So he's charging right now.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what really happened at the start. He seemed to just run right, exiting turn 1. I didn't see much contact, but that just completely threw him off. And you have a big grid of GT3s just coming through. It's very hard to find your place back in the train. But he's still driving, he's still out there.
Yeah, it can be very demoralizing having a stupid off at the beginning of a race. Especially if nothing was... Sorry, words. If it was just your fault and you made a mistake. I mean, luckily he repaired his car, didn't he? He did have damage.
Yeah, he came into the pits alongside a few other drivers, like Enrico Bräuninger, who's also running 10th.
But yeah, you do have to kind of sit and watch all of the cars you just spent an entire qualifying trying to beat go past you before you can rejoin at the end.
That is putting a lap onto Jeremy Miles. Another driver who had to come in early in the race.
The next car he's got on the track to pass is Enrico Bräuninger. But but his next position is Chichu Monera, as I said before, which is now down to 29 seconds. I think Chichu has just passed Enrico Bräuninger.
Meanwhile, up front, the gaps have grown considerably between Adrian Lunio and Ali Zahir. That's 10 seconds between Den Hurt, Lunio, and Ali Zahir each.
Yeah, I don't think Ali Zahir has had a particularly great start to the race here. He seems to have really, well, middle section, I suppose. He seems to have dropped off a little bit compared to Adrian Lenoir, and it's not really on pace. So I wonder if he's had a few more incidents.
Yeah, we've seen it 2 days ago as well, again in FDRL with Ali Zahir and Adrian Lunio. Not sure if you have seen it, but they've just kept fluctuating all the time. And in the end, Lunio was the one making a mistake, opening up the gap, but being able to defend from Ali Zahir. We still have 35 minutes left to go on an arguably more challenging track in more challenging conditions. Big traffic on the backstretch right now. So we see 8 cars in total.
Bit of a car park going on there.
And Enrico Bräuninger, this is Cesco Monera in front of him. He's not fighting him for position. Might take that lap back, but that's not who he's aiming for at the moment, because the car he wants to overtake is Anson Feiler, who is, I think, 3 cars ahead of him, but only 4 seconds ahead of him.
Anson Feiler is currently behind Enrico Bräuninger. I think he must have just overtaken him.
Yeah, exiting the final turn, actually. Anson Feiler must have made a big mistake. He's also got some damage to his car. Just saw Enrico fly by.
So the car ahead of Enrico Bräuninger is now Kimi Hartblow, which is 45 seconds. Enrico's pace fairly similar to Kimi's right now, actually. So obviously that's not going to close the gap up necessarily, but he seems to be driving that car really well.
Yeah, top 5 in class will be hard. He's of course currently in P7. He must have something going wrong for another car to really be able to do it, with Kimi Hartblow in front of him. And quite the big gap to Cesco Monera, who is currently having that P5 position. Who's actually just behind him on track, as we've seen him being overtaken the lap before.
The top 5, strange stat, I know, but the top 5 drivers have all gained positions since the start of the race. I think quite a lot of it is because Kimi Hartblow's gone backwards. But
That's right. But most of the top 4 all gained 1, so yeah, they're exactly like on the grid. Interesting observation. But for Enrico, if he can make up 1 more position, it would also mean he's back where he started this race, which I think is always something you can aim for.
Yeah, I'm a terrible qualifier, so I tend to gain places compared to my qualifying position. But
even better then.
For people who aren't terrible qualifiers, then it's always a good goal to try and finish where you qualify, essentially. Jeremy Miles currently our big winner in that department, though, because he has gained 5 places from his starting position.
Yeah, and I mean, he didn't have an easy race in any way. He also was caught in some issues at the start, had to come into the pits, had a longer repair bill, I think.
Yeah, I think he was one of the first lap pitters.
So he's doing
Currently a
decent
few
job.
laps down on the race leader, Broad Herd. He's 3 laps down in total, but it's definitely a respectable position back there in 9th and gaining 5 places from his qualifying.
Yeah, I mean, with the laps down, you of course also have to consider the shortage of the track. 3 laps here, you're looking at 1 lap of Spa, 1.5 laps of Spa. So basically just 1 lap down. Hard to really picturize that, but double the length, you get your result. So yeah, I think that's a very respectable position. Just to make it this long into a race at Road Atlanta is already quite a feat, I'd say.
Kimi Hapler's just broken into 20 seconds behind Chestu Minera. Chestu seems to have a bit of a pace problem. He's been running a bit slower the last few laps, running in the kind of 122s. Kimi's pace is more on kind of on par with Julian Zakur right now. But obviously the gap between those two drivers is pretty big.
Yeah, the question with Monoera is he has the damage on the front for quite some time, but it didn't seem to slow him down by that much. It did seem to slow him down by not too much. But maybe it takes a toll on the tires. You start understeering more, you start to scrub them harder. So you reduce the lifetime, and in the end that is also just a loop. So you understeer more, the tires degrade faster, leading to more understeer, leading to even more degradation. You mostly feel it, I think, through the likes of turn 1, turn 5. So maybe that's what Cesco Monoera is fighting against.
Is it just me, or does the damage on Cesco Monera's 911 kind of make it look like a Mission R?
I see what you mean. It has like the cutout in the end. But I mean, the Mission R front isn't that far from a 911 in the end, in a way. It's very much the Porsche DNA. Did you know that there was never a Porsche with a front grille?
I did not know that.
No
That's a good
Porsche
fact.
in any form had a front grille. They only had like the bottom slots, which are not considered a grille. The bottom openings.
Okay.
But even, of course, I mean, you know the SUVs, I guess. They
Yeah.
don't have a grille, and that's because, well, they never did. Porsche is against that.
I saw one of the SUVs today.
Statement.
As is my tradition, I shouted, "Not a real Porsche!" That's it.
Necessary evil, I guess, for brands nowadays. But on the other hand, if they didn't do cars like this, they wouldn't have money to make awesome cars like the 911, which has so many cool
That's true.
variants. You have to own at least 10 to have every cool Porsche 911. Because there are quite a lot of them. I mean, I've seen quite a few of them today. I went to the Nürburgring, and of course you're bound to see 911 GT3 RS, multi-racing Porsches. You see sometimes even GT2s, normal GT3s. It's a bunch. Been really awesome though. But yeah, that is.
I didn't. I just went to the park with my dog. I don't think that's quite the same, is it?
I mean, it sounds like a cool activity. Our side by side Kimi Hapler taking a lap on, I think that might be Ensenpfeiler. Yes. It's a bit hard to tell with the liveries sometimes.
Yes, it was Ensenpfeiler. Luciano is loitering back there in his BMW hypercar, so he's about to come screaming past the pair of them. luckily met 3 Porsches on the back straight, so that you can make easy work of at least 2 of them.
Anson Fowler went wide in turn 1. I was seeing it on your screen, but I couldn't quite find the correct button to press. This is a hard full-time job. You need to understand that.
It is. It's difficult sitting here watching car racing and talking about it all the time. It's we do this for you guys.
And because we enjoy it. Partially.
I was trying to get some sympathy there. You're ruining everything.
I could also say we do it for my money, but that would be a blatant lie. Ali Zaher is 35 seconds down on Adrian Lunio. Really dropped a lot of pace. It wasn't like one genuine mistake, it was just like he dropped close to a second each lap for quite some time now. Just quite surprising.
I've only just noticed, but Adrian Luno's fastest lap is a 1:18.197, which puts him 3/10 ahead of Rowan de Herd in fastest lap pace. His last lap was a 19.0. Rowan de Herd's was a 19.38. Now, there's obviously 10 seconds gap between them, and wow, only 23 minutes left of the race. But he is going quicker.
Yeah, and then you have situations like this one, then Hood, Anson Feiler. I mean, these two are teammates at FDRT. But still, Anson Feiler can't just disappear into thin air. And then he has also Julian Chicot in front of him, who he has to get past, and not far in front of them, this should be Chesco Manuera. So you have traffic coming his way. That will shorten the distance. In the background you could actually see Lunio.
Yeah, the gap was 10 seconds, I think, when I first said that, and now it's 8.2. Obviously, Lunio's got to take that traffic as well, which might slow him down. If there was any team orders going on, Anson Feiler might use that to his advantage.
I highly doubt that.
I'm trying to create some Drive to Survive like drama. You keep ruining everything.
Because we have sporting integrity here. I do value my sporting integrity. That's why I watch NASCAR. Where we have playoffs.
Yeah, Kimi Hapler now mid 7 seconds behind Cheschu Manera. The battle that has been long awaited might finally be upon us. But Adrian Lenoir on a flyer at the minute. His last lap was an 18.4. Rowan de Herd's was a 19.9 because of the traffic. But Adrian's decided this is not finished yet, and he can maybe still make a race out of it.
Yeah, I mean, with 20 minutes to go, you're still about 15 laps away from seeing the finish line. Probably even more than that.
Yep.
So, don't celebrate too early.
No, Adrian Lenoir got past Anson Feiler really cleanly there on the start-finish straight. Anson just backed off a little bit and let him through.
In his case, it's good that the cars have spread out a bit more since Robin Hood went past them.
Yes, yeah, he's got less of a block of cars to get through than Rowan the Hood did. That's for sure.
Only 5 seconds now between Munuera and Hapla for P5 in class. But I'm also positively surprised we still have 4 cars on the lead lap in general. So the lap is super short. We have not seen somebody just breaking away up front. You have seen the top 3 breaking away from Julian Chicot, but even Julian Chicot is only lost about 20 seconds in total to Alizar. So it's not as clear cut as you may have expected in some form after qualifying. Of course, Kimi Hapler taking out of the equation fairly early on, that changed things. But even with Kimi Hapler, I think it wouldn't have been a clear-cut race in any way. It's been anybody's race, basically, in the top 6. And it's still in for both in the top 2, if nothing goes wrong.
His last lap round, Rowan the Hood did an 18.675. Adrian Lenoir did an 18.663. So very marginally faster, but basically the same time.
Well, they only got to meet 2 days ago, basically. Kimi Hapler getting past... I think that might be Jeremy Miles.
That was Jeremy Miles, yeah. Back in 12th position. Jeremy Miles fighting back. Maybe not a particularly advised move, and I don't think Kimi will be very happy about that.
Just having a look down the inside. But he can do that in an endurance race. You're not obliged to give way in that sense that you have to completely brake.
No, but it was Kimi Hapler had got past Jeremy Miles, and then Jeremy Miles drafted his way past again, which is a bit of a sus move, in my opinion.
It's not advised to do it because it will only lose both of your time, especially if you know
Yes.
you're going to lose that time nonetheless. But here we go for 5th in class. Cesco Munuera defending from Kimi Hapler. Kimi Hapler letting the wheels slide out there a bit, and with the better exit, this will be pretty easy overtake on the Spaniard, I think. I also doubt that he's defending as much here with that damage to the front. That will really slow him down in the straights.
If there are any fans of 1990s World Superbikes, that was a classic Carl Fogarty light up the rear end and let your horsepower do the talking maneuver.
What?
Thought that'd just be me.
Yeah, there are two issues with that reference that I can't really understand. I'm not really into bike racing, and I may also not have been born in that time frame, but
No,
uh,
that's fair, but somebody might get it. And that's
that's
the one. But for
that
that
is
one person, it was worth making it.
that is a very good thing. Anecdotes. We need anecdotes.
But if you want me to add a bit more context, Carl Fogarty was a British World Superbike racer. He also rode a Ducati, which at that point in World Superbikes, because they were V-twins, had an extra 250cc compared to the four-strokers. Some might call that cheating, and the fact that he kept winning might back that up.
It sounds ingenious and cheeky at the same time.
But the head of the World Superbike definitely might also have been Italian, so that could have possibly had some sway on why anybody with a V-twin, which was just the Ducatis, had an extra quarter of a litre.
For sporting integrity. I mean, stories that I really enjoy are going into the same vein, with people just opting to work in the gray areas in the rulebooks and creating a double as thick rulebook in the mean way. I mean, I think somebody like Ken Tyrrell or Junior Johnson are prime examples of this. If you remember the lead shot Brabhams or the fuel line in the Thunderbird, I think it was.
Oh yeah, I remember the Thunderbird one, yeah.
Those
the one with the massive fuel line.
that he just drove off with without a tank. Do you know the Brabham lead shot one?
I don't know if I know that one.
I mean, no, I'm not sure if I completely misjudged. Oh, as Dominic Heller goes past both GT3s who are doing a lapping maneuver by themselves. But, now goes a bit wide. Adrian Lunio has compromised the exit there a bit. That will play into the cards of Ron Denhood. The Brabhams, of course, ran without a turbo during the turbo era of Formula 1, therefore being down on power. But what they did to go down on weight, so they at least have that going for them, because they were lighter by design, but they could have gone even lighter, and what they did is basically adding lead to the water tanks, which they installed to cool off the brakes.
Okay.
Now what they do is the car would be weighted with the fluids topped off, and they would just dump the water with the lead, and if you don't know, lead is a very heavy material. Potentially toxic, but anyway.
Yep.
Very heavy. They would just dump the water directly in the session, have a light car, and before they'd be weighted after the sessions, they were allowed to top the fuels up and the water with the lead. So,
right, okay.
I think they got nicknamed the world's fastest shotgun because some of the water would just spill out the back with the lead in it. So, yeah, you don't really want to get in contact with that if you don't have to.
Motorsport has a fairly checkered history of grey areas of rules, shall we say. It's always an interesting topic to dive into. It's a YouTube rabbit hole you can go down and ruin an afternoon.
I mean, the unique thing about motorsports, which not only applies to cars, but also, of course, in certain boats and planes, they surely have their own stories. Or the bikes you mentioned. But in other sports, yeah, you might find some trickery, but in the end, a human is just a human. Okay, there are some substances that might make him a bit different than that, but in the end, you narrow it down to what a human can do. But in a car, you can have the human manipulate stuff as well as the people building the car.
Yeah.
So
I can give a slight counterpoint to that. in the Tour de France a few, maybe 10 years ago back, then the cycling authority had to start watching the peloton of cyclists with thermal imaging cameras because they were hiding pedal assist motors inside the frame.
Yeah, but that is a vehicle as well. So it's not just like running or something, you're using something else. Even though I think even in something like pool they used heavier or lighter, probably heavier because it makes more sense, but heavier
Yeah.
balls, like they infilled them with something to make them impact harder and stuff. Even there you find trickery, but I think you will not find as much trickery as in motorsports. Even nowadays, I think the most recent story where you would really say, okay, it was maybe a bit too gray in terms of color scale, that most people will remember is the Ferrari engine in the F1 season 2018 or 19. The one with the fuel sensor trickery. Tricky word. That was probably the most recent example, or the Mercedes dust system.
The double diffuser.
Yeah, but that is already like 15, 16 years ago.
Yeah.
But it goes into the same vein. There have been so many...
That's recent for me.
For you, it's recent. For me, it's one of the first Formula 1 seasons of my life, I remember. I think the first one I really watched was 2007. And I didn't really get much of it because I was 5 years old, but I like cars go brr.
Yeah.
Doesn't take much to make a small boy happy. Now I'm still small, but at least a bit old.
And it still doesn't take much to make you happy. Cars just have to go brr.
VTech. Have to keep true to my origins.
But I suppose my kind of earlier Formula One series that I watched, I don't watch a lot of Formula One anymore, but when I was a kid, it was Nigel Mansell was racing. And they had a what you might call a very primitive DRS on the Renaults back then, where the driver would put the knee over a ventilation hole and it would redirect air over the wing.
One then who just completely went straight through the final tunnel. Sorry to interrupt you there, but that was kind of a huge moment there for Rowan and Hood, and that cut the gap down to 5 seconds.
Yeah, doing a 21.5 because of his little off track there. But the same lap, to add insult to injury, Adrian Lenoir did an 18.8. So he's still on pretty speedy laps right now. So only 7 minutes of the race left. So we're getting into the closing stages of this, and that's kind of a bit like putting a rabbit in front of a greyhound, I think, for Adrian Lenoir.
But Adrian Lenoir has been right up the bumper of Rowan Hood for 10 laps or more at the start of the race, and he couldn't get past.
That's very true.
Does that stick in his mind? That's the big question.
I mean, maybe. I mean, he also might have been kind of taking it easy at the beginning of the race. I don't know. Not as willing to take as many risks because it was at the beginning of a 90-minute race. Whereas if you can catch up to him with a couple of laps to go, then kind of all bets are off, I am pretty sure. We've got a big gap to Ali Zahir here. So if something does happen and they get into a spin, it's not going to cause either of them to lose all the way down to third. They've got a big safety blanket to kind of go elbows out.
Yeah, they have the room to go elbow to elbow here. You're right with that. So I don't think we will see anybody holding back here. But it's also 4.3 seconds. I don't maybe they do have a car now in between of them. Now it will be the case in a moment because Ronda and Hood will get past. It's hard to distinguish with all the same liveries on the Porsches, but that the number
Rowan
2, it's Kimi Harpler.
Yeah, it's Kimi Harpler right now.
And Ronda and Hood diving down the inside. Kimi not putting up a defense here. Fair driving there by him.
Yeah, he's not going to catch anyone with the next 5 minutes, so I don't think he'll have any problems with moving over and letting these leaders through.
Now Luciano Ikazu also joining the fun.
Making short work of the AMG down the start-finish straight there.
Oh, and look at that in front. 4 GT3s. I think all of them Porsche. Now, that will be surely interesting for Ronda and Hood and for Kimi Harpler to not cause them any troubles. Ronda and Hood is...
Adrian Leno.
Yeah, oh, one of the Porsches goes straight just out of the way. Oh, and Luno just avoided him there.
Yeah, that was a close one. I think there might have been some clenching going on there. It was Anton Filer just going off the track a little bit.
And Ikazu taking all 3 Porsches. Okay, so setting up for the last 5 minutes. Dominic Ladler is leading with a comfortable gap over Luciano Ikazu and Hypercar. And Ronan Hood... Wait, Adrian Lunio? No, good. Ronan Hood is 3.8 seconds ahead of Adrian Lunio, but with, I think, 3 cars in between of them that Lunio has to make his way through.
Yeah, there's Dima and Kimi and someone else.
I know the third car instant filer was the car we've seen Lunio avoid.
Yeah.
That was already out of the equation. So first
Adrian Luna going into big flash mode.
It would be a huge win for Ronda and Hood. It would be a first win for Ronda and Hood in livestream competition. But Lunio, it's been quite some time since he really competed. To come back with such a performance is a great thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. We haven't seen him for a while, and for him to put on the show he already has is impressive. He has fastest lap of the race right now, and his pace has been pretty impressive all the way around. His last lap was 0.6 quicker than Ronda Hood, probably because of just how he handled the traffic and how bunched up it was. So the gap is 3 seconds now. 2 minutes left of the race. And that might be 2 laps. I doubt they'll make 3.
It all depends on the hypercar. That will be the interesting fact.
Of course. I completely forget that the hypercars are there for a minute.
But Dominic Ladler, he's not too far behind them on track as they exit turn 6. He's just into turn 5. So he should get them.
Adrian Luna definitely got Ronda Hood visible right now. He's got to get past Kimi Harpler, which he just does.
Left the space wide open, braked on the straight. So thanks Kimi for allowing us to continue with this great final stint here between Lunio and Ronda and Hood. 2.5 seconds. Now will it be 2 more laps or will it be 3 more laps? It all depends on Dominic Ladler.
Oh, Adrian Lenoir throwing it all over the grass. He's decided to put everything into it now.
Gap has come down to 23 seconds. There's Dominic Ladler. He's going to pass him into the braking.
Yeah. So I think Ladler will get across the start-finish line, so it will be another lap to go.
This should be the final lap, yes, because we only have 15 seconds left on the clock.
And Adrian Lenoir's still got 2.6 seconds to make up. And an overtake, which is all big ask. But I'm sure Rowan de Hood will be feeling the pressure here.
He's felt tons of pressure.
He's handled it pretty well so far this race. So, like all hats off to Rowan de Hood here.
Oh, drifts out of turn 6.
But I think with 1.9 seconds still the gap coming down the back straight, I think Adrian Lenoir might have to admit defeat here.